Hey campers, hope you're enjoying your week and you were able to check out our video from week 1. We're super excited to bring you some more activities for MSC week 2.
Campers, week 2 would have been Quick Holidays week. We're going to kick off the week with another camp chant. Make sure you pay attention to everyone dressed up to the theme. Hey camp kids, it's Quick Holiday week, so let's kick off our week with the camp chant. All right guys, give me a hey, hey! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Ho, ho! Let's head on down to the MSC camp. Hey! All right, let's do it fast. Give me a hey, hey! Hey, hey! Ho, ho! Ho, ho! Let's head on down to the MSC camp. Hey! All right guys, thank you, have fun. Hey campers, we're doing our arts and crafts for week 2, Quick Holidays. What we're going to be making today is fidget spinners. Something awesome, again, that you guys can make at home and then play with once it's done. So what we're going to need today is some thin cardboard. You're going to need 3 or 2 pennies, depending on the type of fidget spinner you make. You're going to need a small cup, some markers, crayons, or colored pencils. I chose markers today. Pair of scissors, a safety pin, and then some glue. I've got 2 types of glue. I've got some super glue for my pennies. You definitely want to use a stronger type of glue when you're gluing your pennies on your fidget spinner. And then I also have a glue stick that I'm going to use when I glue my 2 pieces of cardboard together. So first thing I did, and I kind of prepped this out, was I made a template for my fidget spinner. So I made a fidget spinner that has 3 kind of sides to it, or you can make one that looks like this. Both of them work just the same. Today what I'm going to be showing you is a 3. So I went ahead and I already copied my fidget spinner, my template. I've already copied it to my cardboard, as you can see. So first, before I go ahead and cut this out, and this is going to be our base for our fidget spinner, before we cut this out, I'm going to go ahead and color this. The reason I'm coloring it beforehand is so if we color it after and our glue's not all the way dry, we might shift the pieces around, and we don't want to do that. So I chose yellow and red today because I'm a big Kansas City Chiefs fan, so I'm making a Kansas City Chiefs fidget spinner. So I'm going to go ahead and get these nice and colored really quick. All right, guys, so I am wrapping up my coloring, and as you may have noticed, I did not stay in the lines very well, but I did that for a reason, because I'm going to cut this out anyway, so I didn't need to stay in the line. So I colored it pretty quick. So I'm going to move on, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut this out. So you're just going to follow your template lines that you made. Remember, take your time when cutting. Cutting is very important in this because we want to make sure that we get both sides of our fidget spinner as equal as we can. And we're going to even it out once we glue it together. But if we can try and make it as even as possible the first time, it'll save us a little bit of time on this craft. So I'm going to keep cutting, and you might notice that it's a little tough to cut cardboard sometimes. So make sure that if you need a parent to help you, grab a parent to help you cut. Make sure you have a good pair of scissors. And the thinner cardboard definitely helps. If you're using a thicker piece of cardboard, it's going to be a little bit tougher to cut. All right, so we have finished cutting out our fidget spinner base here. Next, what we're going to do is we're going to flip them over, and we are going to glue them together. So what I found is that a glue stick typically works the best when gluing these together, because it's nice thin glue, but I can get coverage everywhere. And for some reason, the glue stick sticks really well to cardboard. So I'm going to try and find which one's which. I believe this is the way it goes. And I am going to glue it. I have that wrong. Hold on. Maybe I had it right. There we go. That's better. So boom. So I'm going to glue those together, and then once this dries, guys, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to kind of clean it up a little bit with some of the cuts that don't match up so evenly. But I'm going to push that down, And to move on after this, while we let that dry, we're going to do our next set of gluing. And we're going to glue our pennies. So on a fidget spinner, they have those heavy pieces right here. They have those holes sometimes. Well, that's what our pennies are for. This is going to be part of our spinning mechanism and what keeps the fidget spinner spinning. So we're going to put a penny on each one. And whoops, I just put a little glue on the table. But that's what we're going to do. And we're going to line those up. And we're going to try to put our pennies in the center of each little cul-de-sac is what I'll call it right here. On each tip, we're going to try to put those in the center as possible. So I'm going to come in, and guys, I'm using super glue. The reason I'm using super glue is because it's very, very sturdy, and it also dries pretty quick. So boom, I'm going to set that there. Ooh, and I might have used a little bit too much glue, but that's okay. We want it to stay nice and sturdy. Right in there. Same thing. Remember, try to keep it nice and centered. Last one. And obviously I learned a little dab will do ya. You don't need too much glue. So once you're done gluing, guys, we're going to give this about 5 to 10 minutes before we touch it again, because we want everything to be nice and firm. All right, campers, my fidget spinner is dry, so we're going to move on to our next step, which is getting our hole in our fidget spinner to start creating our spinning mechanism. So this is very important. You're going to take your safety pin and make sure you get an adult to help you with this, since our safety pins are sharp. But this is very important because you want to get this as close to the center as possible. Because if it's not in the center, your fidget spinner could potentially be a little bit wobbly and not quite spin around as much as we would like. So I'm going to try and get this as close to center as possible, which I think is right there. And when you're poking your hole, make sure your fingers aren't behind you so you don't poke your finger. So I'm going to slowly get this nice and through. All right, there it is. So I'm through my fidget spinner. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to pull it out. And then I'm going to start getting my toothpick in there. So our toothpick is what we're using to spin our fidget spinner. So my toothpick's in there. I'm making my hole nice and big. Our goal in this is to get it to where our toothpick is pretty loose in there. We don't want it to be too loose, but we also don't want it to be tight, because if it's too tight, it won't spin at all. So as you can see, I'm maneuvering this toothpick in there. We're pretty close. So last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to take just the tip and I'm going to kind of spin it in there to make that just a little bit bigger. I'm going to flip it over and I'm going to do the same on the other side. Nice and easy. So now when I stick my toothpick in there, look at that. Just like that. So now we know it spins. So we're good to go ahead and start on the next one, which is we need 2 circles. And those are going to go on top of our fidget spinner. One on this side and one on the other side. So if you watched our last video, how I made circles, this time instead of using construction paper, I'm obviously going to use our cardboard. So I'm going to cut out a rectangle, and I don't need a very big one, and then I'm going to cut it in half. All right, I've got my 2 rectangles, so now I'm just going to start cutting out my circle, keeping those together so that way my circles are nice and even. Boom. Just like that. These don't have to be the prettiest of circles. We just need these to kind of sit like that over our fidget spinner. And that's what's going to hold the toothpick in place and ultimately be our final spinning mechanism that we're going to end up making. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use my safety pin again, use an adult, and you're going to want to stick that right through the center of both circles. So I'm going to do one at a time just so I don't stick myself. There's one, and there is number 2. So on this one, instead of having your toothpick be loose, we want it to be nice and tight. So here, I want to stick it through. And eventually we'll cut off the tip of our toothpick. But I'm going to stick it through just like that right there. And I'm going to take my super glue again. You guys can use regular school glue, regular white school glue at home. I'm, again, using super glue because I know it dries quick. And I know it's going to be a nice sturdy hold. So we've got it there. And what I'm going to do is then drop this like so. And I'm going to kind of, typically, I'd give this time to rest. So that's what we use our cup for, is to let it rest in that position. But we're going to keep going. And we're going to work on the last part of our spinning mechanism, which is getting this other side in. So let's see if I can get this other piece down around our fidget spinner here. So this is going to be a little difficult. Again, guys, if you're having any trouble, make sure that you guys get a parent. So I'm just going to kind of push this up along. Okay, so now that I got it moving, move it up. And so instead of keeping it nice and tight, I want to leave a little bit of a gap. All right? Because again, if we get it too close together, our fidget spinner is not going to spin. So I'm going to leave just a little bit of space in between there. I'm going to flip it over. Now I'm going to glue this side. Again, we want to make sure that our glue is touching our toothpick and that we're getting a nice, sturdy hold. So now that I'm done, we're going to make sure I put the cap back on the glue so I don't get any more glue on our table. And we will cut the tip off of our toothpick. Right there. Well, I got some glue on my finger. I almost stuck to the toothpick there. And then we're going to cut it off about halfway for here. I'm going to be careful. Whoop, there went my toothpick. Just went flying over that way. And guys, before I cut the rest of it, you want to make sure it's fully dry before we get nice and close to our fidget spinner. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hold it. And as you can see, we've got our fidget spinner. I don't want to spin it too tight, too strong right now because, again, my glue is drying. But that is our fidget spinner, guys. So go ahead, make this at home. Super fun. Let it dry for the amount of time. Make sure all of your glue is dry so that way it'll stay together and you guys can have this for a very long time.
Hey campers, so here we are for our science experiment, and we are going to be doing another chemical reaction, and we're going to be making our own lava lamps this week. So what you need first is you're going to need some sort of glass container, and that can be a wine glass if you may have it in your house, or a tall glass that you have. The most important thing is that it's see-through, so you can actually see that chemical reaction happening down in the glass. And I wanted a tall one because we kind of wanted it to really look more like a lava lamp. So what you want to do is, first you're going to want to fill it up with water. And you don't want very much water in the bottom of your glass or your vase. If you were to use a vase, you just want a little bit of water in there. And then what you also are going to need is you're going to need some sort of oil. So we're going to be using a combination of oils today, but you could use vegetable oil, canola oil, or olive oil, whatever you have in your house. And what you're looking for is 2 times as much oil to water ratio. And so that's why we're going to be using some of our canola oil and then also some of our popcorn oil that we have here at the community center. Another ingredient that you're going to need is you're going to need Alka-Seltzer tablets. And they come in these nice little white tablets is what we're looking for. So you're going to need that. And then of course you're going to need some food coloring to make it look cool. So I've got my water in my glass. And now what we're going to do is I'm going to add my oil. And remember, we want that at least 2 times as much oil as we do water. Now, and as you're seeing, I'm pouring that in there. Oil and water do not mix. And so they are separated, and it's separated out there. So here we go. I'm going to add some of our popcorn oil on it, and it's going to be a different color. We're going to see if this mixes well. Ooh, it made it very orange. Cool. Okay, so I think I definitely hit my 2 times oil to water. And let's see if that's going to settle out there a little bit. See if I give it a little swirl if it settles. Okay, so you see how it's kind of separated. Let me flip it to this side so you can really see where that separation is. So you'll see my water's there, and then this is all my oil. So our next step is we're going to take our food coloring, and you're going to drop food coloring all around the inside of your container. And you want quite a few drops. You want it to be colorful. So maybe 10 to 15 drops in there. And as you see, that food coloring has dropped to the bottom of the oil. It hasn't quite got to the water yet, but it's dropping to the bottom of the oil. And that's what's going to give you kind of that lava lamp effect. Now, if your food coloring were to hit the water, it's going to start mixing, and it's going to make that water kind of turn the color that you're using. We went blue today for Mission Blue with Mission Summer Camp. And now our final step. And here comes the good part. I'm going to take my Alka-Seltzer tablet, and we're going to drop it down in there, and we're going to see what happens. So there it goes. It's starting to get some movement. And once we kind of hit our food coloring, it's going to start. Oh, there we go. I got some food coloring in there. So as you can see, it's having a chemical reaction where it's now moving those bubbles into that oil. And that's because that Alka-Seltzer reacts with the water. It looks pretty cool. And with that orange color, it has made it a real funky color right there. Oh, it keeps moving on you. So let me spin it again so you can see. See how those bubbles are going up and down? And that, guys, is our lava lamp. So make sure, do this science experiment at home. Another chemical reaction that you can learn about.
All right, Camp Kids, so we are in the gym. Our first activity that we're gonna do for Quick Holidays is gonna be red light, green light. So you guys can play this at home with your parents, with your siblings, even with some local friends. So go ahead. I got my crew behind me. I'm gonna be calling out. So we're gonna go ahead and say green light, red light, yellow light, green light, red light. Uh-oh, uh-oh. Ooh, Aaron, I don't know. Aaron, I don't know. Red light. Oh, I got a bunch of them. I got a bunch of them. Oh, no. Green light.